Janet, thank you for taking some time to meet with me. As a parent of two students, you've been an active and valuable member of the school community. I understand that your oldest started at Dalat at the end of elementary school back in about 2014, and your daughter started in middle school a few years later. Since the Malaysian Ministry of Education began allowing Malaysian students to apply to international schools in 2006, it has become increasingly common for Malaysian families to choose international education for their children. Could you tell me a little bit about what brought you and your husband to the decision to enroll your children at Dalat?
Yes, so there were a few reasons for enrolling my son in Dalat. So yeah, you were right, back in 2014. He was in standard 4 in a local school, and he was actually doing quite well for the first 3 years in a local Chinese school. But at the end of the 4th year, he was feeling a little bit timid, and he had lost some self-confidence. Not because of the subjects or anything, but the language was a big problem for him. And so we noticed that he was withdrawing, and so that was a turning point, to let us look for a school. And up to that point, we felt that the language was a problem for him because everything was taught in Mandarin, and we mostly spoke in English at home. Okay. So while he could understand the concepts very well for the subjects taught in English, like the maths and the science, but on the other subjects, he wasn't doing so well. So we decided to look for alternatives and for international schools, and came upon Dalat. And from there, he did very well after that. He enjoyed school. And of course, another reason is also the curriculum. The local school curriculum is very much focused on exams and academics. And we wanted our son to have a balanced, holistic development, like socially and the soft skills as well. So, and we find that most international schools tend to offer that balanced education and curriculum. And so that's why we decided to shift him, and then a few years later shift our daughter. Yeah.
International education in Malaysia is often rooted in Western education with its values and philosophies, and that can be different from Asian schools. How did your children adapt to the different educational framework, and were there adjustments for you and your family?
Yes, definitely there were adjustments. Like you said, international schools are usually focused on a different philosophy and values. And even though both of my children studied in Chinese local schools for 3 to 4 years, they adapted surprisingly quite well to the new international school environment, because the classroom environment was very relaxed. It's more fun. The teachers are very approachable and caring, and overall they found it very friendly environment, and they also found acceptance by their friends. So ever since they changed schools, they are more outspoken, they are more confident, and they are able to ask questions and relate to the classroom environment, and they can absorb what they are being taught. But of course, there were a big adjustment for us. I remember, especially the school holidays, it was very, very different. There was a point in time when my daughter was still in local school, and my son was in Dalat, and I had to remember to make sure that the school holidays overlap, so that we don't have to take time off or ask them to be absent for a few days of their school. So it was a big adjustment in that sense from local schools. So I had to do that. For them, they also have to understand that, okay, their curriculum is different at that time. My daughter has to understand how the brother has to attend school when she's on holidays, and vice versa. So that's a big adjustment from transferring from local school to an international school.
Students in international schools are often referred to as TCKs. That stands for Third Culture Kids. a term used to describe children who spend the majority of their development years in a country outside their passport country. They are shaped by the learning experiences they are exposed to and the various cultures and languages at the school. Your children have that experience as well. Although they are Malaysian and living in their passport country, they are being shaped by the culture of their international school. Could you tell me a little bit about your perspective on your kids being identified as third culture kids and what their experience has been?
Okay, so a little bit of background on how I came to know that this term about domestic TCKs. Now, before that, my kids, ever since they've transferred from the local school to an international school, they've become so much happier to go to school. However, there's a downside, and the downside is that I began to realize that they were slowly losing their sense of appreciation for local, cultural things, and also the fluency of their mother tongue.
Yeah.
Like, so we speak Hokkien and Cantonese, at home or elsewhere when we meet locals outside. And so in the beginning, I blame myself for not teaching my kids these things, you know. And they were also not able to understand certain rituals or things that we do, especially during Chinese New Year when we have reunions in a family. And so they were supposed to greet their elderly relatives according to their ranking, social hierarchy. But they just said, hi, Happy New Year, Auntie, Happy New Year, Uncle, which was fine, right? But after that, I was told that, no, why didn't your kids say the right thing, which is, in Chinese, it could be referring to 大姨, which means oldest auntie or something like that, which refers to the hierarchical rank. So in a way, that made me blame myself because, you know, I felt that I didn't really teach them in that sense. And so, but when I heard about the term domestic TCK from Mr. Dobson, I became very interested, and you know, I chose that topic to research in my master's thesis. And I was intrigued of what I learned, and that not only are my children termed as domestic TCKs, but I am a parent of a domestic TCK as well. So the awareness struck me so hard that I'm truly thankful that I know now. You know, so imagine this, like your kids are going to overseas, it's every day, but they come home, okay, at the end of the day. Right? It's not just 1 week or a few months, but it's for the long term. So that poses hidden changes in them. And so when they display that lack of appreciation, or maybe they're immune to our local culture, it's normal. It's normal. And it's a huge relief when I realize that every day that they are immersed in a different culture from those at home is something that I shouldn't blame myself, you know. So it's something of a byproduct of being in a learning environment in an international school. From my personal experience, I had learned two things. Okay, first, it's the awareness, and know that once we put our children in an international school, we are inadvertently parents of domestic TCKs. And that awareness is very important because a lot of parents, like myself, are simply not aware of the fact that they are putting their kids in, like going overseas, you know, for the day, but coming home to another culture at the end of the day. So there's going to be a clash of values and cultures and exposure. Right, so every day the parents have to deal with the changes in that, and especially during the adolescent years where they're growing up, they're developing their personal identity, they're developing their cultural identity, they're trying to find out who they are and where their roots are. I know that even though that we are local Malaysians, we are Malaysians, but sometimes that's being influenced a little bit day by day of our kids. Sure. So that is where the awareness needs to come in. Okay, and once we know that, then we need to take action. Parents, we need to play our role by helping them to instill in them their values at home. We can't expect the school to teach them everything, so parents have to take an more active role in a sense to teach them about the values of why we do things in a way and on certain days of the year. I remember in December, every end of the year, we would have this tradition of making tong yun, which is the glutinous rice balls in a sweet soup. So that is something of a tradition, not necessarily religious, but it's just a way of how we Chinese mark the year. A new year is coming. It's even more auspicious than the Chinese New Year actually. But sadly, not many parents know that, or they may know it, but they don't really practice doing it with their kids. So this is one example where we still are proud of our heritage, are proud of our culture, traditions, and rituals at home, and we don't want to have it lost in the future generations. So if we as parents balance that at home, sure, and that would be a good overall completion of their education and their cultural appreciation, right? So this, I would hope that parents would, do their part in imparting these traditions, and not just food, but language. Sure. If you could speak in your local dialects, why not? And just appreciate all things local, Malaysian, and so that they don't lose their touch when they are outside of school and when they interact with the local communities. They are able to speak easily with them, or even just order food in the local language. Yeah, and then I think that is the most important thing. We need to strike a balance as parents and play that part to make sure that values is not stopped, and it will continue in future generations.
Janet, thank you for your insight and the time and thought that you've placed in the education of your children. We are certainly glad that you and your family are a part of our community.